free beer tasting right now if you want to come and join us. All this stuff we're pouring. Okay. Okay. That's free beer all day long. Okay, how you doing, everyone? Welcome to the North Woods. Welcome to the only blue dot in a very red area of northern Wisconsin. I do this every time I'm in town on the weekends, and I try to spend my weekends up here because it's God's country up here. And I always say even the media literate deserve God's country too. And so I apologize to those who are not media literate, but I don't think anybody here is in that category. So I just I do a little tasting of all the stuff that we sell. And then because we're basically an activist organization that makes money by selling booze, I talk a lot about what we do with the money and why these cans, why we came up with these cans and all that stuff. So are you ready to join me on this boozy tour of politics throughout Wisconsin? And come on in, folks. We're doing a free beer tasting if you want to join us. Otherwise, the bar, you can shelter your ears from progressive talk if you want to go to the bar. Okay. Tony. I need my bartender here or else this thing, are we ready? Oh, okay, great. Okay, Kayla was going to be pouring all of your booze today. Give Kayla a hand. So I'm going to try to be nice to your palates and give you the non-booze stuff first. And then we enter our non-beer stuff first. Then we enter into the beer world. So this first one we have is called Joint Session. And it's a 5 milligrams of hemp-derived THC. And weirdly enough, in Wisconsin, we can serve this up until next November. Trump's big, beautiful bill took away the ability for states to serve cannabis-derived THC. So this is only around until some billionaire in the cannabis industry bribes Trump, and then we'll have it back again. I'm sure that's going to happen, so no worries. I start with this because it's THC, and we live in a very chaotic time, and I'm going to kind of walk you through the Minocqua Brewing Company is going through a very chaotic time. We've been in national news for like the last 2 weeks because they're trying to shut us down for essentially offering free beer day the day that he dies. And I think everybody knows who he is. We're offering half price beer day the day that Mitch dies. And this is this t-shirt here. They call that morbid. I call it fun because when you celebrate the death of evil men, it's not necessarily morbid or unclassy. It's what we've been doing in society for hundreds of years when bad guys go away. And I think we have Mitch McConnell. We give away half price beer day for Mitch McConnell because I think at least caused half of America's problems. He stacked the Supreme Court full of Trump stooges, and he instead of impeaching Trump after January 6th, he decided he wanted to hold on to power and not do anything. And then that is the reason we have Trump 2.0. So anyways, the reason we start with orange drink is because I wanted to start the story on why the Minocqua Brewing Company is making national news and gaining like 10,000 social media followers a week as a result. It all started when I think I might have been drinking too much of this last January or February, and I was really pissed off about something Trump had done, and I typed on Threads of all social media channels. Threads is like the smallest, but it is full of rabid progressives. Like it's the most wildly progressive, I think, because they all went from Twitter to Threads. So I posted on Threads, I was like, free beer all day long. the day he dies at both of our tap rooms. I promise this is not a joke. And then I think I passed out and went to bed. The next day, 40,000 likes on that post alone, because everybody recognized what that meant. And I woke up, and then all of a sudden we are in the Daily Mail in London, which is like the National Enquirer, it's a horrible. We're in the New York Post, which is basically Fox News for New York City. The Blaze, all the worst of the worst of the right wing, like news stations were like, "How dare you say that?" And I just doubled down. I was like, "How dare I not say that?" It was so funny, and everybody got it. I'm like, this is going to be the biggest party in the history of the world when that guy dies. And people were coming from all over, Australia, Finland, Germany, everybody across the world was like, yes, free beer day. We're coming. I'm like, it's going to be hard because getting to Monaco, Wisconsin is almost as hard as getting to Columbia, from any major airport. But people are still willing to come. So that's why we're starting with the orange drink, because it's absolute chaos with free beer day, and we have chaos with our company, and we're trying to roll with it. Let's go next to our wine. So I bring the wine in next because it's not beer, and I didn't want to kill your palates. First of all, this is really wonderful wine from Pine Mountain, Sonoma. We partnered with Equality Vines, which is owned by Jim Obergefell, who gave us marriage equality. The Supreme Court case of Obergefell v. Hodges gave us marriage equality. Jim Obergefell is a gay man from Ohio, couldn't be with his spouse, couldn't be with his loved one at the end of his life. He sued, and the resulting Supreme Court case, before the Supreme Court was corrupt, gave us marriage equality. So these guys are like LGBTQ icons and heroes in Sonoma, and they make this wine called Choice, and we donate money to reproductive rights groups for every bottle sold. Now that's the fun part. That's the professional part about my speech. I was in Sonoma helping basically sample, because I spend a lot of money with this winery. They let me come over and they kind of treat me really nice, and I had made a plan to propose to my girlfriend at this winery last April, or March or April. I can't really remember anymore. And so we were there. I proposed to her. She said yes, thank God. And we were a couple bottles of wine in when we were in a rental car. I shouldn't say I was drinking and driving, but it's Sonoma. I was in a car, and the radio came on, and it said there was an assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Now, I wasn't sober, and I don't profess to be at all. But what I said, I was like, I think people expect me to write something, because I've been talking about Free Beer Day for the last couple months. And so what I wrote was, either a brother or sister in the resistance needs to work on their marksmanship, or Donald Trump faked another assassination attempt to get over a bad news cycle. I tried to use a joke to offset the truth, but yet again, Fox News and the Daily Mail and the Blaze and the craziest stations kind of latched on to the first part, saying that somehow I was part of the resistance that needed to work on their marksmanship, in order to assassinate Donald Trump. So I got crucified, absolutely crucified for that. And people, and I just doubled down. I was like, guys, I didn't say anything. I didn't call for the assassination of Donald Trump, but I do believe, and Kayla, you can pour the Mexican lager. I do believe there's a certain amount of times where you get tagged by the FBI or the Secret Service where they have to come inspect you, because that's exactly what happened to me. After I came home from that little mini vacation asking my girlfriend to marry me, and all of a sudden I was visited by the FBI and the Secret Service for that post, which I'm sure is meant to intimidate, and I'm sure it rubs up right against the First Amendment to free speech, because in America, what you say online now is no longer as free as it used to be. We know that because you probably all know a teacher who was fired when she said, or he said, that what Charlie Kirk was saying when he was murdered, we shouldn't be making him into a Messiah-like figure because he preached hate. But yet the teachers who said that, or the people who said that, were fired for saying that online. Similarly, people who said that ICE was murdering Alex Preddy and Renee Good, the words murder, that they were castigated for saying that stuff, even though it's true. So the First Amendment is something that I fight hard for, because I felt for a brief second that I might have ended up in the same detention center that a lot of our immigrant and brown brothers and sisters in America who are citizens are ending up in right now, and it scared the heck out of me. Kayla, I can only talk about Mexican lager for so long without Mexican lager. So anyways, I'm going to talk about Mexican lager, and she hopefully will pour it. There's plenty of beer to drink, and so if she doesn't show up, we're going to figure it out. But the reason I pour this next is because I definitely want to talk about detention centers and about what it's the worries that we should be having right now through a growing Gestapo and through the disastrous treatment that people are getting in detention centers, and they should be called concentration camps, because I kind of believe that during World War II, when they put Jews and gypsies in detention centers, it probably didn't seem a lot different to the Germans that were watching this happen at the time than us watching our fellow neighbors get put into these camps and detention centers as well. But let's bring it up a bit, and then I'll talk about the back of this can, because it's called the Gulf of Mexico, obviously, and it is and will always be the Gulf of Mexico to me. I usually start with this one, and because it's the funniest one, but we had to start with orange. We had to start with THC. On January 20th, 2025, America's twice impeached convicted felon signed an executive order that changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Yes, by forgetting to reserve his only family brain cell that day, our lobotomized swamp donkey of a president unilaterally erased 5 centuries of geographic history. Regardless of what our McDonald's fart-filled blimp of a wannabe dictator says, the sane half of America, not the inbred cult of MAGA rockbiters, will always refer to that body of water correctly and with respect to our southern ally. We created the Gulf of Mexico Mexican lager for those in America who still have the courage to stand up to bullies and respect a world order that's held together by common belief in democratic ideals and the rule of law. Salud! Okay, so that is that. We're going to talk about Mexican lager. By the way, Kaylee, you can do the resistance in a picture next, because that might be easier on you. Okay, so that's the Mexican lager. The next one I'm going to talk about is our Resistance Pilsner, and the Resistance Pilsner is right over there. We have a huge picture of it. We have a Statue of Liberty, and she is protected by the 4 presidents who I feel saved America when we most needed saving the most. And these presidents all had resistance movements associated with them. George Washington had this Culper spy ring, which was a spy network that monitored British troop movements and helped him win the Revolutionary War. Abraham Lincoln had the Underground Railroad, which helped deliver slaves from the South up to the North and through Canada. Teddy Roosevelt, who was our president during the first Gilded Age. And a Gilded Age is when a few rich people own everything and everybody else is fighting for scraps. That happened over 100 years ago during Teddy Roosevelt's presidency, and he had the muckraker movement as his resistance at the time. And I'm going to talk about that when we talk about muckrakers. And then obviously Franklin Roosevelt, FDR, helped us get through World War II, which helped us beat Hitler, and the resistance movement there was called the Freedom Trail, which we're going to talk about later. And also we're going to talk about Antifa October Fist, which is why we say it's okay to punch a Nazi. So that's all coming up in our little tour. So the Resistance is our flagship beer during this crazy time in American history. We've been fighting to stay alive in this crazy tap room for 5 years. I just told a few ladies before why these arrows are rainbow. Basically, it was a zoning thing. Oneida County wanted to zone me out of a business, and I had to paint arrows, and they forced me to, and I was like, well, screw that. I'm going to paint transgender arrows just to piss them off. So, but more than just the resistance in Oneida County and the town of Minocqua, we are fighting a resistance in Wisconsin. Oh, by the way, sometimes you get extra comedy. And it's because, folks, sometimes there are big trucks that come by, and sometimes those big trucks know exactly who I am and who we are here, and they want to try to get our goats by blowing coal, smoke up into the sky with their big pipes. And I always say, that's funny because, and I created a t-shirt about that. It adds the entertainment. I created a t-shirt, and the t-shirt says, the Minocqua Bird Watching Society, because they also flick us off very often. And on that t-shirt, I think the license plate said Kid Rock, spelled Kidrok. And I think there might have been a toothless driver driving that truck. But anyways, I digress. Let's keep on going. So we're fighting a resistance in America and in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, the resistance has turned into a coalition called the Fighting Oligarchy Coalition. It includes Voces de la Frontera, which is a group in Milwaukee and in the more populated areas that are fighting against ICE disappearing immigrants. We are part of that coalition. Is also all of these democratic socialists who seem to be wiping the floor with corporate establishment Democrats in primaries all throughout America right now. And then we belong to that as an independent media company who publishes a lot of essays on our Substack page from people from all over the Midwest, Minnesota, Illinois, and Wisconsin, trying to talk about the truth and make sure that the media, what you're hearing in the media, has some sort of a way to counteract stuff that isn't true. So the other thing that the resistance that I've been focused on is having to battle. Most of you are not from Wisconsin, right? You guys are from Minnesota. You're from Chicago. Where you guys are new? Chicago? Yeah. UK. Hey, you guys wouldn't let Hassan Piker in last month. Did you hear that story? The UK banned one of these socialists from America from being in the UK. They wouldn't let him in because they were anti the Palestinian genocide. And so there's Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks and Hassan Piker, who's this crazy guy that talks to the kids on like Twitch. They wouldn't let those guys in because they were saying that Israel was having a genocide against Palestine. And apparently the powers that be in the UK, which we think of as a bastion of First Amendment, our bastion of free speech, because we're losing ours in America. But it was unfortunate that they wouldn't let those guys go to a conference. That's great. That's great, my friend. As we all should. And that is the reason why you have these primaries happening all across America, where the establishment Democrats who are running are getting beat because they are being funded by pro-Israeli millionaires and billionaires through AIPAC and J Street. And let me just remind everybody, I'm about as progressive as it gets, and I'm going to vote Democrat, vote blue no matter who. But there's a schism happening in the Democratic Party, and I really don't like, and the rank and file of the Democratic Party of America really doesn't like when rich people tell us how to vote or make it so that we can't vote for the people we want to vote for. And those are called
Commie Alley in Brooklyn.
Say what?
They call it Commie Alley in Brooklyn.
I hear you. So in America, in Wisconsin, what is happening now is that we have the establishment limousine liberals. And by the way, I was one, and I got so pissed off at the donor class in Wisconsin that I've become the rogue guy. I think it might be my Scandinavian upbringing, but I just couldn't handle it anymore. But the establishment is working tooth and nail to make sure that a woman who is polling at 45%, as in the Democratic primary, she's a Democratic socialist. She's polling 45%. The next closest competitor, David Crowley, is polling at 15%. She's killing him in the polls. But our governor, who's an establishment Democrat who only won because he got millions of dollars from AIPAC and other special interest groups, they're working overtime to block her candidacy and to get everybody else out of the race. So there's only two people in the race, and so they can beat her. And it's unreal, the age gap. And I love the fact that you're a big-time progressive, my friend, but it's wild how if you're over the age of 60, you're fighting for the establishment and everybody else is not. And it's crazy what I see happening, because on Facebook, everybody's for the establishment, and on Instagram and Twitch and everything else, everybody's for the young folks. So I digress. Let's move on and keep on drinking. Abolish ICE. Okay, here we go. So this is a grapefruit goes, and a goes in Germany, the region of Germany where goes beers came from, have more salinated water. So the beer is always saltier in goes Germany, and that's why. And I say abolish ice because salt melts ice. And that's why we have our grapefruit goes. It's kind of like a shandy mixed with like a salty margarita. So abolish ice. I wanted to talk about, I created what's called the Minocqua Marketplace after reading an essay by Harvard Kennedy School professor Erica Chenoweth, who said one of the resistance tactics that we need in order to resist authoritarianism is to create economic collectives so that our money is not given to the people who are going to repress us. So obviously, if we spend money with Amazon, we're giving money to Jeff Bezos, who bought the Washington Post, who is using the Washington Post now as a propaganda tool for the oligarchs. If we buy Starlink or we buy Teslas, we're giving money to Elon Musk, who is using his money to make sure that we are given propaganda on Twitter. All of these oligarchs are buying up our media in America so that they can tell us how to think. So one of the reasons that I started this website called the Minocqua Marketplace, we have 120 progressive companies and growing. And I'm trying to get to the point where we can sell everything that you might need. I call it the Amazon for progressives. It's not there yet. It's right now. It's kind of like a fuck Trump Etsy, because a lot because a lot of my businesses are small and a lot of them sell T-shirts that say "fuck Trump" on them. But the goal, the goal is to sell everyday goods so that if Trump steals our elections in November and then again in 2028, we are able to boycott in an organized way on steroids, because the only way you can beat a dictator non-violently if they take away your ability to vote is through boycotting and striking. That is what I read with this Harvard Kennedy School professor, Erica Chenoweth. She said, build economic collectives. I built an economic collective, and we're donating I sold $100,000 worth of, okay, now it's the big reveal. Sorry. Worth of free beer day T-shirts over the last week, because we've made all this crazy news nationally for doing that. That's great, because now I can donate money back to, because that's through the Monaco Marketplace. It's not beer. It's through the marketplace. Now we donate $500 a month to the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant Refugees, and also $500 a month to the Midwest Immigrant Fund, which pays Midwest Bail Fund. So it pays the bail for people who are getting detained and putting in detention centers so that they can skedaddle once they get paid bail, and they can get the hell out so they're not in danger again. I can only give $500 a month to these two organizations because we're not that big yet. So I want to let you know that the sale of some of our beer and the sale of T-shirts is going to progressive companies. That's the first good thing, and it's not going to Amazon. But the second good thing is that a portion of the proceeds are funding people who are on the ground in Chicago and the Twin Cities primarily, because other people can handle New York and California. I'm just a little pissant in Minocqua, but we're doing big things, and we want to help the upper Midwest on their resistance journey and resistance movement. So that's Abolish ICE. Cheers. Next is Freedom Kolsch. Okay, so this is now we're going to go back to the crazy story of why we're making national news. But first, Freedom Kolsch, it's a Kolsch, which is Germany, and Freedom Trail is if you were caught on inside enemy lines in Germany when you were fighting with the Allies during World War II, you had to get out, and the best way to get out was to go to northern Africa and then go across west in northern Africa and land in Casablanca, which is why the movie Casablanca exists. So you see Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman on the cover of this can, and the Freedom Trail was you had to go to Casablanca so you could bribe somebody to get you to Portugal, get you back to America. That was the resistance, movement during World War II. Now, I want to talk about that's during fascism, and we're going to talk about fascism in Nazi Germany in the next two cans, because that's got a lot to do with what's happening in America right now. So remember, I said free beer day. Everybody loves it. It kind of went viral a bunch of times over. Well, I was visited by the Secret Service and the FBI as the first reason that they kind of try to shut me up. Obviously, that's not going to work. Obviously, I'm not built for that. I've got a lot of other stories to tell on what made me who I am today. Why it's not possible for me to shut up anymore, and I'm not going to get into those stories. But the next way they try to shut me up is that the MAGA trolls made 80 complaints to the Wisconsin Department of Health about stuff that I joked about online. They said that I put COVID vaccines in my beer. They said we spit in our food, which is hilarious because if you Google us, you'll see cheese curds, only because 6 years ago I owned a brew pub 2 football fields away where we serve food. We haven't served food for 5 years or 6 years, but we still get fake reviews saying our food sucks. So they also said I spit in our food. 80 complaints. and the Department of Revenue opened an investigation against us because of those 80 fake complaints. And the Department of Revenue, those guys, the Division of Alcoholic Beverages, has to deal with Wisconsin beer distributors quite a bit. And Wisconsin beer distributors, there's about 5 families in Wisconsin who kind of distribute alcohol to the entire rest of the state. And it's the same way all throughout America. If you were able to control an entire industry in a state, given the Byzantine alcohol laws that every state has, by the way, alcohol laws are only younger. They're so old that there's only one kind of law that precedes alcohol laws. And those are what's the word? Prostitution laws, brothels. Exactly. I was like, I can't say porn. How can I say this without getting in trouble? So anyways, I have a feeling that the distributors in Wisconsin hate the fact that we are successful without their help. I've been boycotted by distributors. The other reason I think that they are trying to shut us down is because of what I said before. There's a schism in the Democratic Party, and our governor, who runs the executive branch of Wisconsin, is a Democrat, but he's about as establishment as they come. And I am making news daily on being anti-establishment, and I think they want to shut us up. So either way, we're getting harassed like crazy by the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, and I will talk about why we're getting harassed after our next beer. How about that? Okay, Kayla, we need Oktoberfest. Okay, so she'll get there eventually, but this is my favorite can that we have. If you've parked here with a car, you will see that my signs say Antifa parking only. Because, and you'll see pictures of World War II, of your grandfathers and great-grandfathers landing on the beaches of Normandy, fighting alongside the British Army, and fighting Hitler. Antifa stands for anti-fascist. And I dare say being an Antifa is being a patriot in America today. So I call this Antifa Oktoberfest, and I'll read the back of the can, which, by the way, in the 1940s, America sold war bonds to help pay for the war. And these war bonds showed Captain America punching Hitler in the face. They were not shy in the 1940s. So I start the back of the can by saying, is it okay to punch a Nazi? According to Captain America in the 40s, it was. During World War II, America rose up against Nazi Germany and rejected the idea of fascism, which is defined as government led by a strong man that fetishizes power, uses violence to quash opposition, demands absolute loyalty, and gains power by seducing those who perceive themselves as victims. Does that sound like anybody you know? Over the last 70 years, we've honored our American forefathers who vanquished fascism in Germany. Those heroes were anti-fascists, or for short, Antifa. Unfortunately, fascism once again reared its ugly head. Not in Germany, but here at home, within America's borders. That's why we made Antifa Oktoberfest, a German-style fest beer that is uniquely American. Notice you have a blue fist on the can. Of course, it's not okay to punch anyone, but it's patriotic as hell to raise your fist against fascism, reject its 4 tenets, and embrace the true American ideals of democracy, freedom, justice, and equality of opportunity. What's the word for cheers in German? Prost! Prost! In the good way, not the Nazi way. By the way, who can sing here? We should sing a German drinking song while we're doing that, shouldn't we? I used to be an opera singer in New York City. Who knew? So come on with me, everybody. Eine Prosit, der Gewinntlichkeit. Eine Prosit, der Gewinntlichkeit. 1, 2, 3, super! I'll tell you a little story because now we're getting drunk. I was in the Harvard Crocodillos, which is this crazy a cappella singing group in the Ivy League. I was the only guy in central Wisconsin that's ever been plucked out to go to Harvard. Who knew? It's called meritocracy. It no longer exists in America. So we were singing in Köln, Germany, at the Schmetterlinge Festival and the Butterfly Festival, and we were among like all the Germans who used to be the kings and queens, but all the kings and queens were beaten in World War I. But they're still rich and they're still high society, and they still walk around like they're still kings and queens. And that's the group of that people that the Harvard Crocodillos tries to find when we're on tour, because they pay for all of our dinner and they get us liquored up all the time. So we were at the Schmetterlinge Festival in Zein, Germany, in the castle, and we might have sung that toast one too many times that night. And we were doing Bavarian dances with it was like the Hilton sisters of Germany were there was two sisters there, and they were kind of famous in the German royalty world. And somehow or another, when we were doing the Bavarian dances, the paparazzi caught me dancing with one of them and me dancing with another one. Obviously, because it's like a square dance. You just pass around the partners. But they caught me with both. And on the front page of Der Spiegel, which is like the National Enquirer, Handschuhe Harvard Junge, handsome Harvard guy. That was about 50 pounds ago. Handsome Harvard guy causes a rift between the royal family in Germany, which is still around today in the Pusey Library of Harvard. That was my 15 minutes of fame in Europe when I was 19. That has nothing to do with politics in America, but it's kind of a good story, I dare say. Okay, so next, let's talk about fascist tears. This is a funny beer because it's got eagle-eyed Kash Patel on it, and it's got Pete Hegseth. That's the big version of it right here. We particularly put a shit emoji as Pete Hegseth's haircut. Now you know. We also gave him tattoos that you can read only if it's blown up to this size, and you can't really read it on the can. One of the tattoos says douchebag, and the other tattoo says I eat boogers. Yum. Nobody said I'd ever grown past the age of 12. That's where creativity flourishes. So this is called Fascist Tears. It's their frustration brewed for your inebriation. Let me read the back of the can. Our new summer session IPA is made with the Kayla! Beer! Kayla! Jesus! IPA. There we go. Our new summer session IPA is made with the fermented laments of some truly frustrated fascists. Eagle-eyed Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, gets so drunk that his staff needs to request breaching equipment to rescue him from behind locked doors. Pete Hegseth, who spent millions of your tax dollars renaming the Department of Defense the Department of War, gets regularly punked by his speechwriting staff. Instead of giving him Bible verses to read at Pentagon and worship services, they plagiarize quotes from Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. Remember that? This is the best one. Pay attention. Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt, while attempting to de-Pinocchio herself by getting a nose job, couldn't shake the curse. The cross around her neck grows larger every time she lies to reporters. Our new IPA will only get better with age, as the impending implosion of American fascism will surely intensify the flavors that these organic tears add to the brew. Cheers, everyone. So I mentioned fascist tears because you need ridicule and you need humor just as much as you need people marching in the streets in order to show that the emperor has no clothes. And you need economic collapse, which Trump is definitely leading us towards. But that's how I get back. We use humor and we use ridicule because I'm too old to march in the streets, and we have a huge platform. We have a huge social media platform. It's about 500,000 people now across Substack, Instagram, Facebook, and all the other ones. So, and I also use ridicule to get back at the establishment Democrats who are unfortunately trying to block all things good, coming from honest people who are not taking money from AIPAC or special interest groups. And I've definitely may or may not have made fun of our governor, Tony Evers, on a regular basis these days as a result. Okay, next one. Muckraker, perfect. Okay, so Teddy Roosevelt was our president during during the first Gilded Age. And the first Gilded Age had Vanderbilt, Carnegie, J.P. Morgan. Who else? Rockefeller. Thanks, brother. So they own the railroads, they own the banks, they own oil, they own steel. All the rest of us in America 120 years ago didn't have much money. Well, guess what's happening now? Bezos, Zuckerberg, Thiel, Larry Ellison, who's buying up all our media, they are the oligarchs from 120 years ago. So we need to look towards history to figure out we beat them once. We have to be able to beat them again to get our country back. So how do we do that? Teddy Roosevelt was able to break the monopolies that existed in America, which seemed unbreakable because they had all the power. He was able to do that after 3 presidents who you won't remember were bought and sold by those very same oligarchs. I don't even remember who they are, but I think Harrison, Calvin Coolidge, maybe McKinley. But you don't remember them because they were bought and sold and they did nothing good for America. You do remember Teddy Roosevelt because he was not supposed to be the president. He came from an oligarchy family. The Roosevelts were super rich New Yorkers. He was raised very pampered. He also got all his jobs based on the fact that he was part of the royal class in America. But somehow or another, he was a pipsqueak growing up. He was picked on. He learned how to box. And then his wife died, and he went to Montana and then learned how to wrestle cows and bulls. And he became tough. And he understood the plight of the working man. And he determined that when he got to be president, which was by accident, because somebody died and he was the vice president at the time, he was our leader. The only reason he won, though, was because he had muckrakers by his side. Has anybody ever heard of Ida Tarbell or Upton Sinclair? Ida Tarbell wrote for McClure's magazine in the East Coast talking about the plight of the working people. Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle, which talked about the plight of working folks in Chicago, specifically Polish immigrants who worked at a meatpacking plant. Those Polish immigrants had to stay at the homes that the big company bought for them. And of course, the big company wanted to maximize profits, so they built shitty homes. So these people had to live in squalor and live with drafts in the middle of Chicago winters. They also had to buy all their food at the grocery stores that were paid for by the company. So the grocery stores wanted to make as much profit as they could, filled these cans of Spam with sawdust and Spam so that they could maximize the profits and had no nutrition for the meat. Obviously, when these people went to work, they didn't have health insurance, and if they got hurt while they were slicing meat, which is obviously sharp, they didn't have antibiotics. And if they got sick and they couldn't work and their family starved. Those were the working conditions that we had back in the turn of the century. And we only discovered them through the writings of muckrakers. And because muckrakers existed and because their books were so well read, they helped just turn the American populace towards Teddy Roosevelt and helped elect other people in Congress and in the U.S. Senate that helped pass the laws that broke the backs of the monopolies. So it's not just the president. It's not just Francesca Hong. It's not just the governors. We all need to vote for those people. And we all need to kind of ride in the same direction. And we need to be led by history, and we need to be led by writing and all that stuff. And I'd say the muckrakers of today, I'd say the best one that I read is Heather Cox Richardson, who writes emails to us every single day. And if you don't subscribe, you should, because she knows history really well. And she does all the same stuff that I'm doing while getting you drunk, but she does it every damn day. We got Amanda Nelson, Amanda's Mild Takes, she's been on my podcast a bunch of times. We got Kazim Rashid in Naperville, who's a Muslim lawyer who speaks truth to power. And weirdly enough, the Minocqua Brewing Company Times, which I started 2 years ago, is a Substack independent media platform that regularly ranks top 50 among all U.S. political Substack platforms in America. Who knew? I consider myself a C- version of Heather Cox Richardson, but luckily I hire people smarter than me to write articles and do. So we got Patty Vasquez from WCPT 820 in Chicago, who's a progressive talk show host. She's on our platform 2 hours a day. We got Ben Kamenos, who's from Pennsylvania, but somehow got plucked into Wisconsin. He talks about Wisconsin politics 2 hours a day. We got Matt McNeil, who's at 9:50 a.m., the voice of progressive Minnesota. He's going to be talking 2 hours a day on our platform. They all write essays. So I got to run this company. They're the ones who are the muckrakers on our platform, and they're doing a damn good job for the upper Midwest. That's our focus. The upper Midwest, we're the counterbalance to what has become a failed corporate media system that we have in America. Bezos bought the Post. Musk bought Twitter. The Ellisons have bought CBS and are trying to buy CNN. I don't even think the New York Times is that good anymore. So, but all of our media is being bought up by the oligarchy. And so that's why we have to focus on independent media, and we have to pick and choose. A lot of that's happening on YouTube, and a lot of it's happening on Substack. And we got to find the truth somehow. And every time you buy some of this beer, you are helping me pay those writers and pay the broadcasters and do all that stuff, because we're a juggernaut only because I sell stuff that people are addicted to or that enjoy when they have a good time. So that's all I have. Oh, we have one more, the coffee, woke coffee. So this British man over here will agree with me when I say that it's crazy how early Americans eat dinner. We eat dinner, and especially in the Midwest, at like 5:30, which is like in a half hour. And because I just fed you all this booze, I want to make sure you get to your next destination with a little pick-me-up. So I'm giving you our woke coffee, which is nitrogen-infused oat milk coffee. So if you're anti-dairy, and you don't have to drink it if you don't want, but it's not alcoholic, and it'll give you a little caffeine to get you to dinner. what I wanted to leave you with today is a speech that I don't think any of you will probably care about, but some people on social media might. So that's why I'm going to still say it. Wisconsin has our Democratic primary on Tuesday. That primary is between somebody who has refused all corporate PAC money and who is talking about affordability, and is talking about health care for all, and is talking about child care for all, and is talking about uncorrupting our politics, and is also talking about standing up to Trump and standing up to him trying to steal our elections. Those candidates generally are coming from the Democratic Socialist platform, but the Democratic Socialists are a boogeyman that the Republicans use to scare the heck out of people who don't follow politics very often. So if you're from Wisconsin, the establishment is trying to put her down, but she is killing it because she's saying all the right things for the people, the working people who need to believe that somebody is not corrupt and that somebody's not taking money from the rich. And they need to believe that somebody is being willing to fight for us. And we know that because she's not taking money for those that are not willing to fight for us or that are fine with fascism in America because at least they're making money in that system. That person is Francesca Hong. She's an Asian woman in a state that often votes for white men. But she is super popular, and I am behind her 100%. And so I'm hoping if you're from Wisconsin, you will vote for Francesca Hong because she is woke. And we need to stay woke, and we need to be even more woke than the Democratic establishment. We have to focus on the progressive wing of our party. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it. Oh, let me turn this on. Boom.